All right. I think we're good to get going, I think, Danielle.
All right, super. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Danielle Adams, and I've got my colleague Heather Craig with me as well. And we're both from Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. And today we're going to be talking about turning all of those individual qualitative online review comments into actionable data that you can see quantitatively over time to help us discern which things are anecdotes and which things are trends. So as we get going here, I am the Deputy Director for Marketing and Communications at Lowell, and my background is in anthropology and cultural astronomy, and I bring that into the marketing that we do. And then Heather, why don't you introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thanks, Danielle. So hi, everybody. My name is Heather Craig. I am the marketing specialist at Lowell Observatory. And my background is in marketing and computer information. I went to school here in Flagstaff at Northern Arizona University. And I've worked at the observatory for almost 3 years now, I think. And I'm just so excited to share all of this with you guys. It's like my favorite thing. Data is just like it's my go-to, it's my jam. So I'm really excited for you all to be here.
Super. Okay, so while we're getting kind of introductions and whatnot out of the way here, if you have a second screen or can use your phone, go to one of your institution's review sites, Google, TripAdvisor, Yelp, whatever it may be. Facebook is not advised at this point here because we want to be able to see the number of stars left on reviews, but also the comments. And we'll make use of that as we go along here. So this is our program for this session. We're going to first talk about anecdote versus data, and then we're going to look at what we've set up as the net reviewer score, and then get into sentiment analysis, which answers the question, why are guests satisfied or unsatisfied? And then we'll wrap up with some real world examples and applications. So to get us started here, there's a big difference between an anecdote and data, right? One comment on a review is not data. We're going to bare our hearts a little bit here. This is a horrible review that we received. This person thought we were too structured, everything was closed, total waste of money. When you see something like this, you might start freaking out and say, okay, unlock all the doors, unstructure everything, we've got to respond to this. Well, and then the next day you get a review like this, 5 stars, everything was great, it was totally worth it. And so you have these two competing reviews. Who's telling the truth? And of course, in reality, they're both telling the truth because they're both sharing what they experienced. But, what should we be acting on? So what we're going to focus on here is discerning those anecdotes where maybe you have to address something with an individual from trends where it's a systemic item that you should be addressing. And so we're going to start off with the net reviewer score. This is something that I created with Heather last year as an adaptation of the Net Promoter Score. The Net Promoter Score is an industry standard tool used in marketing. If you've ever received a survey that begins, how likely would you be to recommend X product or X experience on a scale of 1 to 10 to someone else? That is the Net Promoter Score, and it's an industry standard format. Apple uses it a lot when you make purchases through them. And what we're doing with the Net Reviewer score is we're converting that 10-point scale to the 5-point scale that most review sites use. So we're just translating these values. So in the net reviewer score, promoters are your 5 stars, passives are your 4 stars, and detractors are your 1 to 3 stars. And what Heather will be showing us how to do in just a moment will be to calculate the score. Basically, we take the percent of promoters and subtract from that the percent of detractors. And what are all these categories? So the promoters, your 5-star reviews, those are the people who are really talking about you. They love you. They had a fantastic time and they're telling all their friends. 4 stars, you might think a 4-star review is pretty good. These are passives. They had an okay time, you know. It wasn't, you know, something that they needed to complain about, but they're not talking about you either. They want to be nice, so they give you 4 stars. But those are passives, and we have to ignore those scores. Then your 1s to 3s are your detractors. They are actively telling their friends, don't visit. It is not worth it. It's a waste of time and money. And so that is why when we compute the score here, we are ignoring the passives. We're taking the promoters and subtracting the detractors. So now Heather is going to show us how exactly to do this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danielle. So here we're going to look at just 2 different examples of 2 sets of 10 different star reviews. On that first set on your left-hand side, you've got 2 5-star reviews that are highlighted in green, and then you have 6 4-star reviews that are not highlighted, and then 2 3-stars and a 1-star review that are highlighted in red. And the way that we're going to calculate our net reviewer score out of this set of 10 is we're looking at those green highlighted 5s. And when you first look at this set, you're like, wow, we've got a lot of really good reviews, but 6 of those are those 4-star reviews. So they're those passives, and we're not actually using those. So we have those 2 5-star reviews, and then highlighted in red, we've got those 2 3-stars and that 1 star. And so we're taking that 3, which is 30% of our 10, and then those 2 5-stars, which is our 20%, and we're subtracting our 3s and 1s, 3s, 2s, and 1s from our 5s, from our 20%, and that's going to give us a net reviewer score of -10. So even though it might look like we've got a lot of really good reviews coming in, we get a negative net reviewer score of 10 because we're not including those 4-star passive reviews. And so again, if we look at that second set on the right, we've got 5 5-star reviews, 3 4-star reviews, and 2 1-star reviews. So again, to calculate that net reviewer score, you're going to take that 20% of 1-star reviews and subtract it from that 50% of 5-star reviews to give you a positive net reviewer score of 30. So it's pretty simple. I like using 10 just as an easy number. And so now it's your turn. And so go ahead and just grab 10 or 15 or however many reviews you want from your review site and take those, count those 5s, and then subtract those 3s, 2s, and 1s from those 5s to get that net reviewer score. And as you guys are doing this, I'm going to get into kind of the little bit more complicated calculation that we use in our master net reviewer score spreadsheet that we have made at Lowell. And so the way that we do this in Excel is that we use a count if statement. So the way I set my Excel up is I have a column that has the review in it. I have a column that has the rating, and then other columns that we'll talk about later. But so you're going to use a count if statement and count in the data range. Say you guys are doing it monthly or quarterly or yearly, whatever your organization chooses. Within that data range, you're going to count how many are 5s, and then you're going to divide that by the total number of reviews from that range. And then you're going to subtract the count ifs of 3s, 2s, and 1s. And then the big thing that you don't want to forget is you want to include reviews that don't have comments. And so on a site like Google, you get a lot of people that just will leave a star rating. And that is still really great data that you want to collect. And so you're going to, I like to have at the bottom of my spreadsheet just a table that has the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just no comment reviews. And so you're going to want to, at the end of that count if statement, say for the 5s, add in the cell that has the total number of 5s in it, and then divide that by your total reviews. So you don't want to forget that data because that's really, really important and actionable. And so once we do this over a period of time, we're able to start graphing it and visualizing this net reviewer score. And so this is an actual graph of Lowell's net reviewer score over the year of 2019. And we're able to start seeing trends, and we're able to start seeing what's really going on. And so in February of 2019, you can see that we had a big spike. Our net reviewer score went from 63 to 74. But we only had 34 reviews. And so we're actually going to make this an outlier, right? So we're not actually going to be like, oh, we did so great that month, we just didn't get as many reviews. But when there's months where it's over 100 reviews, that's really good data and reliable data that we're going to start using. So if you see in August through October 2019, we started to have a rise in the net reviewer score. And that's actually this is a great place for me to segment back into Danielle, where we're going to start talking about sentiment analysis, which is actually going to give us the why is this net reviewer score going up. So if you guys have any questions about calculating your net reviewer score, please put them in the chat and we'll address them either right now or towards the end. But I'm going to hand it back to Danielle to get us started on sentiment analysis.
Super. Thank you, Heather. Yeah, and hopefully some of you have been calculating a net reviewer score for your first batch of 10 reviews from any of your review sites. So just let us know in chat how that's going. And if you have questions, we'll definitely get to those. Okay, so now we're going to look at sentiment analysis. Caroline Gaston put in 53%. Okay, super. Now, one thing I should note on the NRS is that there's no best score. So what's important is to start tracking your scores and then see how they change over time. Each institution is going to have a different background that is going to lead to a different range of scores. And who knows, maybe after using the net reviewer score over time, we could develop an industry kind of average or something like that through VEX. Okay, so with sentiment analysis, this is going to answer why are guests satisfied or unsatisfied. Those ups and downs that we saw in the net reviewer score let us know how people are happy or unhappy, but it doesn't tell us why. So now we're going to dig deeper into the data and try to figure out what is going on behind those hills and troughs. Now, I mentioned I'm an anthropologist, and I see marketing as applied anthropology. Now, if you get a little bit scared of the marketing word, we often think of marketing as the outputs, advertising, things like that. But marketing really starts with the inputs, understanding our visitors, and then feeding that data to the rest of the organization. And so here at Lowell, this data analysis is part of, it's under the umbrella of marketing. And so the sentiment analysis that we're going to look into, it borrows from ethnographic methods of anthropology to assign different category tags to specific phrases of your comments that you see online. Now, how do we use this? Well, first, again, it gives us the why behind the data from the net reviewer score. Depending on how detailed you make these category tags, it's going to give you actionable data. Pre-COVID, Heather was computing the net reviewer score and the sentiment analysis once a week. And so that was giving us a rapid cadence. If we saw some sudden spike, we could then, wait a week perhaps and see if it repeats, and then start taking action to see what's going on. And then really importantly, conducting this kind of analysis and graphing it over time, as we'll show you later, really helps you understand which elements are anecdotes and which are real trends that you need to pay attention to at an organizational level. So Heather, take it away.
All right, thank you, Danielle. So I am going to be getting into my favorite part of this, which is the sentiment analysis. It gives us the why. So buckle in, guys, because I am so excited to talk about all of this. So where do we get this information for our sentiment analysis? Well, just like the net reviewer score, you can get it from your online review sites, but you can also gather it up from your social media, right? You can get it from comments and stuff like this, as well as email responses. So at Lowell, we have an info@lowell.edu, which is our general email, and people will send us in how their experiences were, and then as well as on-site comment forms. So if you guys have your visitors filling out a form as they're leaving, this data can be derived from all of those things. And so to get us started, we're going to want to build a tag list. And so this tag list is going to be made up of two primary things, right? We want to think about the subject of the comment and the polarity of the comment, right? And so our subject for us, an attraction would be the Clark telescope. Was someone talking about the Clark telescope? And then the polarity, was it positive or was it negative? So we've got a few examples for you guys below. And so the first one is, I learned so much, right? We would have tagged it as education content positive. So their subject was education content. They learned a lot, and their polarity was positive, right? They really liked what they learned. The second one is, it was too cold. We would tag that here in our list as weather negative, because they were talking about the weather and the polarity was negative, right? And so these are things that we're collecting that are actionable to us. And this is like information and data we want to learn about our customers. And then this third one, this place is amazing. So this right here, we wouldn't tag this at all. Even though the polarity is positive, there's really nothing actionable. There's no subject in this sentence for us to tag. So we're going to be looking at an example from the Observatory from a TripAdvisor review. And it's a pretty long review, but we're going to move to that next slide and break it down a little bit for you guys. And so in that first sentence, it states, the friendliest, most enthusiastic staff I've ever encountered at a learning/educational attraction. So in our tag list, we're going to tag this sentence as educator interest positive, because this person's talking about our educator, our staff, and they really liked how engaging and interesting that experience was, right? And so the second sentence that's highlighted is, it's obvious management has paid special attention to hiring NAU students with an interest in astronomy. We have this tagged as educator knowledge positive, because they're talking about our educators and their knowledge and how much they enjoyed that we hired educational staff to be at the observatory, right? And then our last thing that we're tagging here is, it won't be the last, right? So we're tagging this as return positive. This person is stating to us that they want to come back to our observatory. They want to come back to our institution. So if something was that said, I'm never coming back, we would tag that as return negative. So we have to think polarity and subject. So that's kind of where we got our start in building tags.
Heather, if I could jump in here, we've got a question from Alexandra. Do you use customer service as a tag or just educator?
So, and we'll kind of get into this too. We, right when we were building our tag lists, it was kind of all over the place. And so we alternated our tags we separated educators and education content and staff. And so our customer service staff was kind of in a different, was a different tag, but then over time we kind of combined them together. So if you really want to separate out your data originally from your educators and then your customer service staff, I'd recommend doing that. But then over time, depending on kind of reviews that you're seeing, you can always combine them together, and we'll get way more into detail with that as well. So I really hope that answered your question. So how do you guys start building this list of tags, right? It's kind of like this intimidating beast and you're like, I don't even know where to start. So where we started when we were building this tag list was we wanted to look at elements of our observatory, of our museum, and what we wanted insight into, right? We wanted insight into admission prices and lighting and all these different things, as well as where are our blind spots. So what are our customers talking about that that we're not really paying attention to, but we would like more information on? So what are the things that are actionable that our guests are talking to us about that we can pull out? And so what we did is we started with this massive list of just kind of everything we could think of that was actionable that we wanted to tag our reviews with, right? So we're gonna go to this next slide where you're gonna see our first list of tags. Oh, wait, it's your guys' turn. So as you guys look at reviews, start thinking of things that reviewers are saying and that polarity, and just give it a highlight or a note. Like admission price is a really good one that we started with. Are they talking positively or negatively about our admission price? So as you guys are looking at your reviews, I'm going to just kind of walk you through our process of all of our tag lists that we've created. So this right here was our first big tag list that we started using at the beginning of 2019. And it's just kind of all over the place, right? This tag list was just derived from reading a lot of reviews, from, this is what we would like to see information on. These are all of our different attractions. And we used this list for about 4 months. And then Danielle and I came back together and we're like, all right, so what are we getting information on? How do we kind of make this list a little better? And that's when we started bucketing. So we started making topics for our lists, and we actually grew the list from 41 to 46. So we're starting out with a big detailed list, and just adding to it, and just to get as much, capture all that data that we can, and then we can shorten it and squeeze it together later on. So as you can see, we have our educator experience and then our staff, and we had those separated out, and then experience XP. And if you notice, all those different buckets now kind of are the title of our tag, right? And so educator experience, XP admission price, and so we started separating and parsing these out, but then again, we also added some tags, right? So in the other tag column, we added Awe Mind Open. And this was because our marketing department had started a campaign where we wanted to have our visitors experience wonder and experience awe. And we wanted to see if they were coming back and actually saying that in their reviews. So we added some tags just to get as much information as possible. And we used this tag list for about 6-7 months for the rest of 2019. And then in 2020, we came back and we parsed it back out again, shortened our list to a tag of 33, and then kind of expanded and changed our tagging lists. So as you can see, the experience bucket got much smaller, but then we also added admission, and then our staff experience kind of grabbed the educators too. So we just put our whole staff into one bucket, but then we parsed out education and then admission as all separate things that we wanted to track. So we took time and we were looking at the tags that were hardly ever being mentioned, and and decided to put them in and group them together. And as we go through, you'll see this next slide is kind of the process of the second tag list into that third tag list. And as you can see on the right, in that telescope bucket that we created, a lot of those in the second tag lists were XP. They were experience tags. But we decided and chose that the telescopes were a main attraction that we really wanted to make its own thing. But also, there was a lot of tags, and we decided we could bucket them into a more defined tag. So same thing, this is those last 3 buckets with our new tag list. Admission, a lot of them were mostly experience tags in that second list, and we parsed them out to be their own bucket and their own tag list. So that's kind of the beast of making the tag list. It comes with time and running with what's actionable and seeing what people are saying. So start with that big list and then make it bigger, make it broader, and then come back and bring it in after you have about a year of data, a year of information. And so as we do this, we're going to be moving into taking these tags. So we've gone through, we've tagged all our reviews. How do we make that data, right? How do we make that a number that we can see and track and make actionable internally in our museum, in our organization, right? So the way that we do this is we're going back to our master spreadsheet, right? And we're separating the positive tags from the negative ones. And this is where I want to reiterate that we've got our master tag list. And then the way I have it set up is we've got an entire section of all of the tags with the dash and then the polarity, so positive. And then right below that is that same list of tags and then dash negative. So you're getting the same group of tags, but just for positive and negative polarities. And then the way we're turning this into data is we're going to calculate the percentage of those tags that show up using in that section that you're calculating. So say it's for a month, right? How many times does admission price positive show up, right? And we do this by using another Excel formula, another count if, right? And so in that tagged range, we're counting if in the tag range, the subject, with polarity, that tag with polarity shows up. So admission price positive, and then you divide that by the total number of reviews in that section, that month, quarterly, whatever you may have it. And then we put it into a table, right? And so in our next slide, we've got just a little view for you guys of it's the same tag list, and we're looking at the positives and the negatives, right? And we're using conditional formatting here to really show us what stands out. And this is where we're going to start to be able to see trends. And here, if you look at on the positive side, educator knowledge positive, we see that that's a trend throughout the few months, right? But if you look at it on the negative side, that's not nearly what some people are talking about nearly as much on the negative side. That doesn't mean you want to get rid of that tag altogether because it's tracking things positively. And same goes for the weather, right? So weather positive, no one really mentioned weather positive, but in the negative column, it's mentioned a lot more often. So we want to keep that tag. We're getting data, even though it's from just one side, right? So here we're seeing them side by side. We're seeing those trends. And then we're going to move into really being able to visualize and chart out a whole year's worth of this data and why, right? So we're getting to the why is this happening? Why are these reviews coming in? So this is a whole year of 2019. These are like our top 15 tags for that year. And that top tag is education content positive, right? Throughout the entire year, you're starting to see, you're seeing this nice big trend. That's something that's always being mentioned, right? And so if we go to that next slide, we're able to graph this out and really visually see the ebbs and flows of our tags and of our data. So that first line that you're looking at, that big blue thick line, is education content positive. And so, you know, it's not a steady gradual up, but we're able to nail down certain things that happened at the observatory that caused these spikes. So in July, August, September of 2019, Lowell Observatory and Flagstaff was celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Apollo missions. So it was this whole Flagstaff-wide event. We had our educators just talking everyone's ear off about the moon landings and all the research that our astronomers had done at the observatory with the Apollo 11 mission. So we can really nail down a certain instance of why we had a spike in people saying education content was positive, right? And then if you look at that second line, which is that yellow, orange line, that is the experience family-friendly positive. So as you can see, there's a spike in people talking about their family-friendly experiences through those summer months. Well, that's probably because students are out of school. We're getting a lot more families up at the observatory, and they're bringing their kids up there more often than in the winter months. So they're mentioning that more. And so say your boss comes to you and says, hey, we're not getting any family mentions in November. Why is this? And then you can look back in this data and say, this is when it spikes year over year. We normally get it kind of like this. So it goes down in November, up in those summer months. And you can really track when these things are actually being said and what's happening in your organization. So here, again, we're looking at that year of negative reviews. And XP Weather negative was just was our top negative review in 2019. But as you can see, January, February, and December are the ones that hit the highest. And we can directly attribute that back to the weather in Flagstaff, right? We're at 7,000 feet, it's cold, it snows, and people don't enjoy standing out in the snow waiting for a telescope nearly as much as in the summer months. So again, we're starting to see those ebbs and flows of why, and pinning down why people are mentioning these things. And then if you see kind of halfway down that list, XP telescope general weight negative, you can see there's a bit of an outlier in the month of July. People were really complaining in that month about how long it took to get to go view through a telescope. Well, we can go back and again attribute that to those Apollo 11 mission celebrations and say, hey, we had a lot of people up here for that lunar legacy. There was way more admission, there were way more people at the observatory. And so more people are complaining about wait time. And then we're able to visualize it again in a graph. So we're looking at, see that orange line, that's that general weight negative. You see it spike in July, but then it comes right back down. It kind of evens back out. And so you're able to, you know, collect this data and then year over year, come back and say, hey, this is something that's trending in the observatory. This is what we are seeing year over year. And then the same thing in the weather, right? So you get that U shape and you're starting to see, you know, that weather trend. So, and I saw that someone asked if we could share what our Excel sheet looks like. Yes, I would love to. I'm going to pass this back down to Danielle. She's going to talk to you guys about some real world applications. And looks like. So I would love to share that with you guys. So Danielle, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. So now we're going to look at some applications. And these are 3 real world examples that we used last year at the observatory. These are examples where this practice of tagging, sentiment analysis, and the net reviewer score helped us answer questions that were important. So the first one was admission price. You know, are we charging too much? are we charging too little? Could we be charging more? Admission price is always a question. For us, we had a very concrete question in the summer last year when we were getting ready to open this brand new observing plaza, the Giovanni Open Deck Observatory. That was scheduled for a grand opening at the beginning of October. And so our question was, this is going to add a lot more value. Are we going to increase the price for admission? And so we were able to look at these tags, positive and negative, across the year. And of course, at this point, it was July or so. And we could see that people were talking negatively about admission price no more than they were talking positively about admission price. There's also, it's called pricing resistance, where the negative comments about admission price, you want actually some of that, because if you don't have anyone complaining, it means your price is too low. So having it, in the 5–6% max range, that's not very much pricing resistance. It could even be higher. So we decided to increase our admission price 30% from $17 to $22 when we opened up the new observing plaza. And so then from October onwards, we continued to track these tags and saw that they didn't move. They were still in that same, 0 to 5% range. And so that confirmed for us that the price increase was a good move. And, we've continued to track that. So the second example wasn't premeditated. It came because we were seeing on a week-over-week basis, the various tags come through. And starting in October, we start to see an increase in complaints about it being so dark at our observatory. And you can see on the left, we've got beautiful dark skies. That's the Milky Way right there. But there were increasing complaints. And so we kept an eye on it for a few weeks and saw that, okay, this is actually a rising trend. We need to do something about this. And so we did. On the left is the original layout, and you can see the individual amber lights, which gives some light, but there's gaps between the lights. And you can see that that was kind of a dirt bicycle trail kind of material. So we changed that to what you see on the right-hand side. We paved it with concrete, the walkway, and embedded glow stones so that they soak up the light during the day, and at night, they give a dark sky compliant low level of lighting that very well defines the edges of the walkway. And so this was, again, a direct result of watching for those tags and seeing what was coming up. And then the third example, there's a question about Groupon, right? So on Groupon, people pay less. Are they more crabby in their reviews because they're paying less and they're more price conscious about their experience? Well, we were able to track this thanks to the data that Heather was collecting. And by preserving the source of each comment, she was able to produce a graph like this. And so the green here is the sources coming from Groupon. And you can see that they're not really more or significantly less in most cases than Google or TripAdvisor. You do see in this column here about a bit right of center, campus history positive. There's less people from Groupon talking positively about history. So it suggests that that segment of the audience is perhaps just less interested in history. On the negative side, again, we don't see a significant differential between Groupon, Google, TripAdvisor in their negative comments either. You see a little bit more here in this experience viewable objects. Perhaps that suggests, a greater focus on NASA images versus what you can see through see with your own eye through the telescope. But overall, again, there's not significantly more people from Groupon complaining. And so we were able to answer that question. No, Groupon visitors do not complain more about any of these things from a broad perspective. All right, so that'll do it for the presentation. We can definitely take some additional questions here. And please do get in touch with us if you have other questions. Our emails are both here on the screen, and we'd be happy to help you get set up with your own NRS and customer sentiment programs.
Yeah, and Danielle, like just right at the end, if you could stop sharing your screen,
Yes,
and I can just
absolutely.
kind of give everyone that view of what my master spreadsheet kind of looks like. So here we've got, so I've got a bunch of different tags right down on the bottom. Our data dashboard over here, this is what that distribution and tag list, we got the NRS up here. So that's what this kind of looks like for me. And then over here, this is where we're inputting and actually tagging those reviews. So you can see on the left, I have where those reviews are coming from. That next column is the review, the date the review came in, the score, so 1 through 5, and then the subjects with polarity. So this column right here is where we'll be calculating the net reviewer score. And then this column is where we'll be counting if, which tag shows up and how often for our data dashboard. So this is how I have it set up. And then scrolling, through, we've got all of these it was weekly for me. And then down here at the bottom, we have the no comment reviews in this table. And so I've got it set up for every month of 2020, 2019 as well. So that's kind of what it looks like for me. And so if you guys have any questions, I know we're kind of running.
Yep, there's one here from Caroline. How do you determine their persona? That's a bit of a bigger conversation. Persona is something that we've been tracking in marketing. We have some primary personas that we look at for our visitors. The science nerd, the history buff, the experience seeker, the amateur astronomer. And so we target our marketing towards those different personas. When you're reading a comment or a review, sometimes, not all times, but sometimes what they say indicates, or suggests what persona they're with. So for example, if they're talking about, wow, I was where Pluto was discovered, this is incredible to be in this living history, then we would tag that as a history buff persona. And so this is a new piece that we've recently added to this, and we'll see how it goes here as we ramp back up after COVID.
And someone had a question about if we're tracking shoppers. We do have like info comment cards that our gift shop shoppers leave, but if you have a place where someone can leave a review, anywhere someone can leave a comment about your organization, about your museum, you can analyze it for sentiment analysis. So you can Facebook comments, anything. So
Yep.
Yeah, so if you guys have any more questions, we'd love to talk to you guys about this further. So please just get in touch with us. And this was so great to be able to do this with you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great. And I am a huge Excel nerd, so I was loving that and all the formulas.
I could talk all day about it.
This is really cool. And I saw somebody else say this in the chat that I will definitely be referring back to this recording in the future. So that wraps up for this session block. We have one more session block.